Okay, we are recording. Okay, I have Marcie Gunderman Troyer on the podcast today, and I'm excited to talk to you to get your backstory. It's funny because I was thinking the other day, I'm like, who should I get on the podcast? Who would be an interesting conversation? I'm like, Marcie. Why don't I have Marcie on? That was a no-brainer. I'm like, duh. I want to get somebody who's connected with Dr. Morse. Who better than to get Marcie on here? So I'm excited to talk to you, and just thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time to come on. And
Not a problem. I am honored to do so.
all right, cool. Is this your first podcast interview, right? Or no?
It is my first podcast. I mean, I've done video before,
Right.
and I've had many people encouraging me to put things on podcasts so that they can listen while they're in the car. And so we've thrown that idea around. It's just a matter of getting it done.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Morse should start his own podcast. I think that would be pretty popular.
Absolutely.
But
We've actually I've talked to him numerous times about turning some of the old videos into podcasts just to see how that would go. And like I said, it's just about getting it done.
well, it's funny because I just today I just started because there's a Facebook group, fans of Dr. Robert Morse.
Yes.
And so I just started doing a live reading of his book in there. So I'm going to kind of go through each chapter, just parts of it.
Absolutely.
To just kind of help explain, because a lot of people come into the group and have questions. They don't really know too much. All they have is his videos. And if they don't have the book, they don't really have any context of how to start or where to start. So I just thought it'd be like a little study group that we could do. So hopefully that'll.
Nice. I like that.
So I just want to kind of get into your backstory a little bit. We could talk about detoxification, of course, and all that stuff. But so where did you grow up?
I grew up in the little town of Goshen, Indiana, Amish country.
Oh, okay. All right. What did your
In fact, a lot of people don't know what Dunkard Brethren means, but it's pretty close to either in between Mennonite and Amish, and that's how I was raised.
Okay. What'd your folks do?
My mom was a nurse's aide for 17 years, and then a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked in a plastics tool and die business. He was pretty high up in the company, but he also was a preacher.
Oh, okay. So you grew up with
quite an interesting growing up spell there.
Yeah. So Sunday every afternoon for you guys, huh? At church? Yeah.
Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday evenings.
Oh, wow. So as far as like diet went, what were you raised on?
Oh, goodness. Well, I became a diabetic fairly young. And so my mom always tried to the standard American diet was never really a complete option for me because of that reason. But still, it was chicken and mashed potatoes and, homemade pies and yeast rolls. I wasn't supposed to have a lot of that. But as the dynamics of medication and the treatment of diabetes changed, you got the shorter acting insulins where you could adjust that to whatever you ate. So it was more of a carb counting. It wasn't so much, you shouldn't eat this. It was, if you eat this, how many carbs are in it and how do you cover for that? Just kind of evolved through the years as medications and the allopathic take on it changed.
Right. Now, I want to say you're type 1, right?
I am.
You are type, okay.
Let me put it this way. When people talk about cancer, diabetes, all these things, it's very important. It's not about denial. It's very important that we don't own that. I have a group of symptoms that they have tied the name type 1 diabetes to.
Right.
I do not consider that I have diabetes. I'm working on reversing those symptoms.
Right. So either way you look at it, type 1, type 2, is it still comes back to lymphatic congestion, acidosis?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There are some neurological things You know, there's neurological instances of type 1 diabetes. People have come down with type 2 diabetes shortly after surgery and being administered anesthesia and this kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, there are different things that can take different organs down. And at the root of every disease, the emotional ties into it.
Right.
I was working with a lady the other day that major emotional connection to mom, and it's
Yeah,
hindering.
you're talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that people don't realize how much that plays into what they're dealing with. And the right and the left side of the body being male or female. And usually a woman that comes to me with a tumor on one side or the other, we get into that a little bit. We talk about, okay, so whichever side it is, this is mom or this is dad or this is male or female, and what has happened in your past that you need to work on at releasing those emotions so that you don't get stuck running into the emotional wall that can happen.
Right, right. Now, isn't type 1 considered more genetic, more inherited type of diabetes, right?
Yeah. Although I will say that your self-esteem resides within the pancreas. And I, at a very early age, had some major hits to my self-esteem. And I believe that played a huge part in it as well.
Right, right. Because we know enough information now that mother and the fetus share the lymphatic system. So did your mom have does she suffer with diabetes or anything, or?
No, it was actually on my father's side where there would have been a genetic connection.
Okay.
Although if you look at my eyes when I first started, I so wish I'd have brought that example with me. But if you look at my eyes, I have my mother's eyes. But since I've been detoxing, they have cleaned up to the point that they are getting closer to my father's.
Oh, wow.
So my eyes, there was never any doubt that I had dark brown eyes. And that was usually commented on. I got compliments on my eyes and my smile all the time, and my eyes were a dark brown. My eyes are now green. It's probably hard to see in this video, but if I'm out in the sun or in my office where it's bright, there's no question I have green eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's actually blue, but I'm in the process.
Yeah. So growing up, sounds like meat and potatoes kind of diet. So did you have, other than the diabetes, any other health issues like asthma or no, nothing like that?
After diabetes, I developed pneumonia once or twice a year for a number of years. That actually turned into sinus infections. I would do nasal spray in order to breathe, not realizing how bad that was. And that actually ate a hole in my septum.
Yeah.
That I have no septum now.
Oh, no.
So it's just one thing after another. Once I started learning about the herbs, and my mom started introducing those to me probably when I was around 10 years old, I got fascinated. My first iridology session, I walked out of there knowing that I was going to do iridology. And that was the age of, it was somewhere around 11, 12, somewhere around in there.
Oh, wow.
I just knew. Yeah.
Well,
I was fascinated. I walked out fascinated. I bought several of Dr. Jensen's books, and at the age of 13 and 14 years old, I was going through, I was studying them. I bought herb books. I was putting together herbal protocols. This is at 13 and 14 years old. So,
well, your mom must have had a bunch of medical books around the house.
She did.
Yeah.
She did. The one thing that I so am just so thankful for is my mom, because she's the one that got me interested in more of the natural approach. She never, ever took the doctor's word of this is incurable. She was always trying something to figure something out.
Yeah, yeah. Is your mom still with us, or is she
Yep,
passed?
no,
Okay.
she's still there.
Okay.
In fact, shortly after that session of iridology, and I think I went like 3 times, someone told her that it was spiritually not correct. And so she pulled back from it. And funny enough, when I finally did start getting into iridology, she was like, oh, are you serious? Oh, no, 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 no. And I told her, Mom, there's scientific background information on this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at iridology, there's over 28,000 nerve endings that flow through the optical nerve into the iris part of the eye. Allopathically, we don't understand why. Why would a kidney nerve or a heart nerve or a liver nerve need to show up in the eye? And it's because it's a reflection. It's not a diagnostic tool, but it is a reflection. And it can tell you where you have certain weaknesses that through time can develop into something that you're not happy with if you don't change it. But it gives you the power to change it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just fascinating how nature works, and just we can be our own doctors with the plants as medicine, being able to see what's going on with the eyes. It's amazing how it's all set up.
Absolutely.
So your mom was obviously a huge influence on you and for health, but how did you start getting like to school, getting education, getting
So
certifications? How'd that come about?
to tell you that, I have to backtrack just a little bit. Being a diabetic, I was also diagnosed with polyneuropathy. My muscles were supposed to atrophy to the point that I was going to be in a wheelchair by the time I was 20.
Oh, wow.
And I remember, even at the age of, this is when I was 10 or 11 years old, we went to Chicago to see specialists and stuff for it. I actually prayed to God for healing, for the gift of healing, and to be a missionary, to go into all the world and help people. And so when I prayed that prayer, I felt this heat go through my body. And I just knew that I wasn't a diabetic anymore. I just knew it.
Right,
So I went to bed that night, never took an insulin shot, woke up the next morning, and I remember my blood sugar being 580 some. It was in the 500s. And I was just devastated. And I couldn't figure it out. But yet the next time we went to the specialist, they did a bunch of lab work, and then they did more lab work, and then they did more lab work, and they finally come out and they said, we aren't sure what's going on, but she no longer has this.
Oh, wow.
We can't find a trace of the neuropathy. Not the neuropathy, but the I'm saying it wrong. At any rate,
Yeah.
I didn't have that, but I was a diabetic. And so, I didn't quite understand that. And at 16, I was talking to God, and I just asked him why. Why would you heal me of one but not the other?
Right.
And the only word I got was discipline. Over the course of the years, and if you look at what we do today, discipline is at the forefront.
Right.
We have to be disciplined to, do I need to turn a light on? Or
I was just going to say, the darkness is enclosing you. Yeah, if you got a light.
One second.
Yeah, go ahead.
1 second.
Oh, there we go.
Knocking everything over. Is that okay?
Oh, much better. There you are. I can see you. It's a pair of eyes. Yeah.
I don't know that that's a good thing, but
Oh, okay.
But anyway, discipline, it takes a lot of discipline to do what we're doing and what we're asking people to do. And so fast forward a ways, I always knew herbally I was drawn to that. And so I ended up one day I had pains in my chest. Of course, you kind of get knocked off your path a little bit. I got married. I started having kids right away, and that kind of took me away from it. And I remember my children being probably 7, 8, 9 years old, somewhere around in there. And I started having pains in my chest. I have a history of heart problems in my family. My grandfather died of a heart attack. My grandmother has congestive heart failure, these kind of things. So being a diabetic, you're also worried about your heart. And so my father-in-law, I was talking to him one day about it, and he's like, I have a lady you need to see. So I went to her, and she was into Rife technology. I don't know if you know what that is, but it is frequencies that go through the body and actually work at pulling out heavy metals and toxins and that kind of thing.
Okay.
The minute I put my feet in the water and she started seeing the colors in the water, she's like, you've got pneumonia. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I went on the way home. I stopped at a doctor's office. My heart is for people who can't afford this stuff. My heart is for people who don't have insurance right now, because I went through years of that where I didn't feel like I could do anything for my health because insurance wasn't there, money wasn't there, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I remember that same day I had gotten something in the mail, and they were doing free x-rays at the doctor's office. So I made an appointment. I stopped in and I just said, I've been told I have pneumonia. I just need you to confirm that. And he listened to my lungs. He said, you're completely clear. You're totally fine. And I said, okay, I got this card that said, let's do an x-ray. And I said, let's just do one just to see. I know it's not the best for me, but I just want to confirm this methodology that was just shown to me that some people call hocus pocus. He come back in 20 minutes later and he said, I need to apologize. Your whole left lung is full of pneumonia. Gave me a prescription. I went home. I did not take that prescription. I used herbs to get through that. Told my husband, I want to get into the natural again. Instead of taking a job, let me start a clinic. Let me do something. So I took some training, got involved with Rife technology. That led to other things like neurolymphatic massage, some counseling. I got into counseling because I knew how much the emotional affected the body.
Right.
Ended up starting my own clinic for about 6 years. Stopped it for a little bit, came back because obviously your health is the biggest promoter of you digging. I had my adrenals just shut down, and for 6 months, I could barely get off the couch and had to start building myself back up. In the meantime, I had a good friend that had a breast cancer scare. All these modalities that I had come up with were very intriguing, but there was just something missing.
Right.
And so when she had this scare, she come to me and she said, Marcie, I know what you do. I know your passion for this stuff, and you have to listen to this man. And it just so happened that this man was Dr. Robert Morse. And he happened to be, in 4 weeks' time from then, he was doing a seminar up in Indiana.
Oh.
And so I actually went and saw him. And have you ever walked in a room where you turn on the fluorescent lights and they flicker a little bit
Yeah.
before they come on totally? As I sat there, everything started flickering, and it was like boom, boom, boom. This makes sense. This makes sense. This is the piece that I was missing.
Yeah.
And I walked up to him afterwards and I gave him the biggest hug, and I said, I know you hear this all the time, but I will be at your next class. And he just kind of gave me this grin, and I was at his next class, and just boom, more triggers. But how do I apply? I'm a hands-on learner. How do I apply this to people? How do I say what I'm learning? How do I equate this diagnosis with what's actually happening in the body? Understand that every diagnosis is simply just a specific list of symptoms.
Right.
You have this, this, and this symptom. We're going to tag it with the name of this disease, diabetes. You have these symptoms, we're going to equate that to congestive heart failure. You have these symptoms, we're going to say rheumatoid arthritis for that one. And that's all it is a list of symptoms that are tied to some systems of the body. It's the systems of the body that start having issues and slowing things down or not functioning correctly. And those can be easily dealt with diet and herbs. That's what we don't understand. We have a list of symptoms that doctors have not been taught that there's a cure.
Right.
And so you'll have this the rest of your life, and you need to take all of these medications just to manage that. Why not reverse those symptoms so that people can start getting rid of the problem and start fixing their issues?
Right. Well, because a symptom or a disease is the body way of saying, hey, something's going on. Look at me. Let's get this out of here. But yet we're quick to like, oh, you got a cough or sniffles. Let's stop that. Let's stop that elimination process. And then,
right.
Yeah, the thinking's backwards.
You know, if your car starts acting funny, you know by the symptoms, or at least if you take it to a mechanic, the mechanic understands the symptoms and can say it's your transmission, it's your universal joint, it's this, it's that, and then you go in and have it fixed. The problem is if you went to your mechanic and the mechanic's like, well, it's your motor, but if you do this and this and this, you may get 6 more months of it before the motor blows.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be like, well, tell me what I need to do to fix it so the motor doesn't blow. You know, you're not going to be happy with just keep going and do this, and you may get 6 more months out of it.
Right.
But at the doctor's office, we go in and we sit there and we're like, the doctor says, well, if you do this, this, and this, and this medication, you can maintain this. You can't get rid of it, but you can maintain it. That's just not true.
Yeah. That's one of the great messages that you guys teach is getting to the root cause of what's happening and not treating the symptoms itself. Because, you know, like you said, you can put whatever label, name, whatever disease you want to put on it, but it's all the same condition within the body, pretty much.
Yep.
So,
Excellent.
fix that, and then,
Yeah. And when you think about it, every house that you buy has a kitchen and it has a bathroom or 2 at least. You wouldn't buy a house that didn't have a kitchen or a bathroom. And when you're talking about the human body, yes, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are. We could get as complicated. In fact, the minute we start think we understand the body, it's almost ironic at how something comes up that we're like, wait a minute, this is this completely is different than what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And when you think about the body, I want to bring it down and simplify it to the fact that the reason we eat, we've turned it into emotional and we've turned it into pleasure. But the reason that we originally ate was because everything we put in our mouth is building blocks for tomorrow's cells.
Right.
So all these doctors that are saying that what you eat isn't important, that's so not true. Would you build a house with wood that's rotted and say it doesn't matter, and then be upset because you have the roof leaking or the side caving in or, you know, the floor falling through? Absolutely not. You built it on inferior materials.
Right.
And yet we're out there, fast food and the standard American diet, and pushing protein. We are not teaching a lot of facts these days. We're teaching a lot of theories. And that's the sad part.
Yeah, well, there's the problem too is there's so much information out there now. It's so confusing. You don't know which diet to follow because everybody says it's this, and someone contradicts it the next minute. So it's really confusing to find which is going to be the correct path. So I think you just have to kind of take everything with a grain of salt and just kind of experiment with your own body. You know, cut something out of your diet and see how that makes you feel, and then bring it back in later and see how you feel. So,
just transitioning, you know, adding more fruit in. There's some people that come to me, especially if they're athletes, and they come to me and they have been heavy meat eaters and protein powder and steroids and these kind of things. You're going to have to transition them in a diet. You get upset with somebody because they don't go all raw or all fruit right away. You're basically shooting yourself in the foot. I would much rather have somebody eat 3 or 4 days of a healthy meal and say, I can't do all week, but I can give you 4 days. Well, let's start there. You feel the difference, and that's going to give you the willpower, the motivation to add maybe another day or another day. And every day that you can give your clients is another day that they can work on their health.
Well, you were just mentioning a minute ago about the emotional component, the attachment and the relationship that we have with food. That is super strong, and I think that's where a lot of people have problems. Yeah, what's up?
It's raining here, and it's
is that what that is? Oh, wow.
Yeah. I am going to try and move to another room real quick. Are you okay with that?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Or can you hear me fine?
I can hear you fine, but I heard something in the background. I'm like, is that a TV on or something? Yeah, I wasn't sure what it was.
It's raining.
It's probably a little bit of residual from the Hurricane Florence, probably getting that, huh?
Yeah, we have had quite a bit of rain.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, I think we should be all right.
Okay.
Yeah, so just the emotional component that we have with food is or a lot of people have problems trying to make the transition, and that's something that I've been struggling with, you know, just I didn't realize how strong the cooked food was going to be. So that's tough.
You know, most of us have issues in our past, whether it's traumatic memories or emotions, that actually get stored. We don't realize it, but it gets stored within the cells, and it can clog our lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system, your lymphatic vessels, as muscles around them contract, it pushes that lymph through. And if you have an obstruction, something standing in that way to hinder that, it's going to slow up the movement of that. Let's just say, and I'm going to do a video on this. Robert and I are actually going to do a video on this. But let's just say this water bottle here. If you know where the lid went. Let's just say that this water bottle was a lymphatic vessel, and that fluid there was lymph fluid. This lid is the obstruction. I can do this, and it's not going anywhere. That obstruction, that can be cellular debris. We have roughly 80 million cells that die off every day. Those cells need to be eliminated from the body to make room for the new ones.
Right.
But if you've got this obstruction and you've got these 30 million cells trying to get through there, that's going to just continue to back up and create obstruction. And a lot of people don't realize it, but this doesn't necessarily need to be viruses or bacteria or parasites or cellular debris. This can be a traumatic emotion or a memory. Right. As you start detoxing, your body starts breaking that obstruction down, and those emotions that you're feeling are starting to get set free. And then you call into the office, and this has happened many a times. I had one guy, he called in, he's like, I am 6'5", I'm from Kansas City, I'm a cowboy, and you have me bawling every day. What have you done to me? And it's just, you stir up these things, or anger, or I'm crying all the time, or feelings of shame and guilt, and it just makes you want to just start stuffing food because you want to feel grounded. You don't want to have to face it. You want to feel full so that you aren't facing those higher frequency emotions.
Yeah.
People got to be prepared for that. I've had many people that have walked away. That fruit thing screwed me up. And I'm like, no, it didn't. It was stirring stuff up, but you would have gotten through it.
Yeah, I just got to write it out a little bit longer. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I was saying yesterday too. Like I use food as a stimulation, I guess as a suppressant, so I don't have to go to those emotional areas that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I guess there's a fear there to actually release and open up, and I, I guess fully realize yourself. I don't know. It's a tricky place. It's kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
I will be honest. I'm going to be very honest here and say that that is why there are some people, I detox them for a few months. I build them for a few months. I detox them for a few months. I build them for a few months. Because if you're coming out of something that is majorly traumatic in your past and you start dealing with it. I remember when I started dealing with some major trauma in my past and it was being released through detox. It threw me into about a year and a half addiction spin.
Really?
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why the emotional aspect of this is so passionate for me. Everybody at the office is always like, this one's for Marcie because it's emotional and that kind of thing. I love the aspect. I love what you can see in the eyes on someone's history and their past and how you can put and tie that together what's happening with the rest of the body. It's just amazing. It's just amazing.
Well, that's awesome. You brought that up, so I wanted to talk about that, kind of the addiction thing you said, and then how you want to detox at a deeper level and then spend a time to rebuild. So I just watched a video with you and Ian Myers, and you were kind of talking about the building and the fasting phase, and how you don't want to stay continually in a deep fasting phase because you can really, get the body strung out, and you want to spend some time to rebuild it, replenish it, and then go back and hit it again.
Right.
I always say it's kind of like a sponge, you want to squeeze the sponge real tight, then again, you want to release it so it can suck back up again, rebuild, and then squeeze
Excellent.
again. Yeah.
Excellent analogy.
Yeah. Because like I always say, like if it's a sponge, you're running, water on top of it. At first, it's dirty stuff coming out. You keep squeezing it. Eventually, you're putting the clean stuff in, it's going to run clear on the bottom. So
Right.
yeah, it's squeeze and let go, squeeze and let go. So.
Well, you're also seeing the clients now that are coming in that are so depleted. I mean, I got a girl in the other day, cancer. She's 85 pounds. Where do you detox an 85 pound? I mean, she can't afford to lose too much weight, or she's
Right.
not even going to be able to get out of bed, stand, any of those things. I had one lady come to me. She'd been detoxing for a year and a half before she even came to me. And she was down to 46 pounds, bedridden.
Wow.
Couldn't even get out of bed, couldn't walk. I'm like, what have you been doing? And I've been detoxing. How long? Probably for a year and a half. Okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break. We're going to build you up so that you can your body even has what it takes to fight. We took 2 months off. She ended up gaining 11 pounds the first month, and just on fruit. It was still just on fruit. And I think I had her on a few herbs to help build her up as well. She gained 11 pounds the first month and 9 pounds the second. So she was up to 70 some pounds, but it was close to 70 pounds. But it was what she needed. She was getting out of bed. She was going to the store by herself, those kind of things. We waited for a little bit longer and then started detoxing her, and we took a break, built her a little more, detoxed her, and slowly started working her out of stuff. You have people that are coming to you, you're going to be working with for 2 and 3 and 4 years because they come to you so depleted that it's this tug of war back and forth thing.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that because I think if people aren't careful, if they have the personality type, they could create an eating disorder or, what they call orthorexia with this detoxification thing. And they're detoxing too much. And they think that's a constant state they have to be in. But I think, there's a time to cleanse and there's a time to build for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what do you guys at the clinic recommend as a baseline, like a maintenance diet? Because you're cleansing, detoxing, digging deep. and then like maybe a heavier building phase. But would you guys just like a plant-based, whole food plant-based? Is that what you guys kind of recommend?
Absolutely. As raw as possible. Obviously, cooked is acidic, but not too many people are good with being raw for the rest of their life. They understand eating healthier. They understand eating more plant-based, but I make it clear to all my clients, my job is not to convince you to be a fruitarian, vegetarian, vegan for the rest of your life. You're coming to me because you're sick. I have 2 tools that I work with. I have more than that, but those are the 2 main ones, diet and herbs. Once you've attained what your goal is, that's your business, what you do after that.
Right,
you just have to understand if you go back to the standard American diet where you're continuously putting in acidic things, eventually you're going to land back where you were.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's important to mention that, because I think a lot of people look at the program that you guys are teaching as more of a lifestyle instead of a means for detoxification, and then they try and make that like a lifestyle. I mean, detoxification is a lifestyle, but I think they're looking at the protocols as something they need to continue to keep doing. But yeah, I think
my goal, when I have attained everything that I want to attain, mainly the reversal of the diabetes, I want to get to the point where I clean my house every week, but it's a light clean. But in the spring and in the fall, I do a deep clean. And I'd like to get to the point where, a few times a year, I do a heavier detox.
Right.
But the times that I'm not detoxing, my eating is healthy enough that I don't have to worry about, okay, I did all this damage again. Now I've got to go and detox. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
I want to get to the point where my body is doing what it needs to do. And there's a few times a year that I help it out by giving it some herbs and some things like that. Go after the kidneys for a while. Go after the liver for a while. Work on the pancreas for a while. You don't have to do them all at once. And you don't have to do it continuously. But just making sure that you're doing checkups.
Yeah.
Checkups.
It sounds like it's raining pretty hard there again. Yeah, I always say, man, it is dumping.
I'm so sorry. You'll
No.
have to speak up a little bit.
No, that's all good. No, it's just yeah, we'll kind of end what we're saying here, but yeah, just playing with the diet, make sure it's not stressful. If your detoxification protocol is causing you stress mentally, you're probably taking on too much and you're doing it wrong. So that's kind of where I got.
Even if you have to eliminate one thing at a time.
Right.
The first thing, if we're talking that way, the very first thing I would eliminate would be animal protein. It has just been proven too many times to be too acidic for the body.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people talk about animal protein in our world today. It's not the animal protein that builds the muscle. It is the amino acids. And what we have to do when we consume those, it doesn't matter what we're eating, we have to break them down to the simplest form anyway.
Right.
And so why would I want to put something in my body that A, is acidic, and B, my body has to work extra hard and extra long to break it down? I eat watermelon, within a few hours, that's processed through my body. I eat a steak, you're looking at 24 to 48 hours of my body continuously working. Almost 70% of our energy that we require and we produce goes towards digestion.
Yeah.
Think about if we would limit that to like 35%. Think about that extra 35% that goes towards healing and cleaning and cleansing the body.
Right. Yeah, because all your blood goes to your digestive tract, and all the energy is right there. So if you're trying to heal something extremity wise, it's not going to happen.
Well, think about it. When I'm digesting, my hypothalamus is engaged, my pituitary is engaged, my thyroid's engaged, my adrenals are engaged, my kidneys are engaged, my stomach's engaged, my pancreas is engaged, my liver is engaged, my whole digestive tract is engaged. I mean, look at all that energy that you're expending for that. That's why, to be honest with you, I have clients that are doing water and dry fasting, and they're doing amazing with that.
That's
because you're conserving all that energy.
Oh yeah. People just stop eating, or the body just kicks into gear and starts fixing stuff. Yeah, that's top of the mountain though, so you got to work your way to that. But so now, on a personal level, are you able to disconnect from work and dealing with clients, or do you always take your work home with you? Can you turn that switch off when you get home so you don't have to? You know what I mean? You probably deal with some pretty rough stuff, I would imagine. So
yeah. I have about an hour to an hour and 15-minute drive to and from work. And so I use that time a lot to process things. I still remember the first case that I lost. They had come to me. The doctor had told them that they were terminal. And I had started working with them. About 4 weeks into it, they had lab work done. Their cancer markers were all coming down. Tumor had actually started shrinking a little bit. And they went into the doctor, and the doctor said, "You have 3 weeks to live." They called me in a complete panic. I tried talking to them about doubt, fear, listening to that, but he believed it. And 4 weeks later, he was gone.
Yeah.
Did the emotional contribute to that? Obviously, scientifically, I can't say that.
Right.
But I honestly believe. I had another case one time. A friend called me just asking for prayer. There was a 7-year-old boy been diagnosed with cancer, and he wasn't expected to live throughout the week. I said, to me, until you have taken your last breath, there is hope. And so I started naming off things that I would do. Get him on this, get him on that, start doing this, start doing that. Oh no, you don't understand. They have only given him a week. And in my mind, if this was my child, no one would keep me from trying anything to save my child's life.
Right.
The story of David and Bathsheba comes to mind because once their affair came out in the open and they had this child, that child became sick. And David was on his knees with sackcloth and ashes begging God not to take that child. Once that child was gone, David got up, washed his hands, and started not celebrating, but eating. And his servants asked him, why would you be grieving and going before God while he's still alive and not grieving for him after he's gone? And David said, while he was alive, there was hope that we may not lose him.
Right.
Now it's time to get on with life. I'm paraphrasing there,
right.
But I don't care if you've been given 3 weeks. I don't care if you've been given 3 months. You do not have to fall into that category. You have all authority to take over your body and to start fighting. We are giving tools to start fighting. Whatever that fight is for you, if it's cancer, if it's diabetes, if it's rheumatoid arthritis, if it's heart disease, if it's acne, if it's hair loss, I don't care how simple or how complicated. Right. You still have authority to either fight it and win or fight it and gain yourself more life.
Right. I think you could say that we all have cancer from various degrees. The body's constantly trying to fight it off, the
Absolutely.
so-called cancer. But once you go to the doctor and he tells you you have cancer, then you
Mhm.
automatically become a person with cancer. And that becomes your sentence. That becomes your story. You become that
Absolutely.
person. Yeah, that's it's a rough way to have someone tell that to you and then
Yeah.
change your whole life. But
And the fear,
yeah, oh yeah,
the
yeah.
stories of fear that come across my desk is just unreal. Unreal. If you don't do this, you will die a painful death. I've had more clients that have walked into my office in tears because they've been told they will die a painful death if they
Wow.
don't do this, this, or this.
Right, right. Wow.
Ruling by fear, never, we weren't given the spirit of fear, and yet that's what they're trying to instill. I mean, I'm not saying every doctor is that way.
Right,
I don't believe that, and I honestly want to make a statement that I do believe in emergency medical. If
right,
you've got an emergency, by golly, pray for a good doctor or a surgeon or whatever you need to get you out of that emergency.
right, right, right. Let's backtrack a little bit. So I don't know how we got on that tangent, but that's fine. That's perfect. I love that.
I
Um,
love tangents.
so I think you kind of left off with your story that you went and saw Dr. Morse speak. So how did that turn into you actually working with him and being in Florida?
So level one, I absolutely fell in love with it. Went home, started putting a little bit of it into practice with my clients. Realized I got to take level two. Took level two, came home, incorporated a bit more. But as being hands on in learning, I just felt I need to go down and shadow Robert. I need to see how he explains what he does and how he says what he does and terminology and all this stuff. So I called the office and set up a time to come down and shadow him. The day before I was supposed to leave, Robert said, I want to talk to you about some stuff. So I went into his office and we started talking, and he just started asking all these questions about where I came from, my background, my kids, my beliefs, my family, everything like that. And but he never got around to asking me more in-depth questions. And so that night I called my husband and I said, I just got this feeling that if I wouldn't have had kids and things like that, that he would have offered me a job.
Yeah,
And I was laughing about it. My husband's like, well, why not? And I said, what? And he goes, well, Braxton's married, Dylan's in college, I have an office down in Lakewood Ranch. Let's just go down there for a year. Do it. Ask him
yeah.
about it tomorrow. I went in the next day and I was like sweating the whole day. I was like so nervous. And just before the end of the day, I pulled Robert aside and I said, I have a question for you. I said, would you ever have room at your clinic for me? And he stopped and he looked at me and then he said, you get down here and I will have a spot for you. And so I went home and I told my husband that. This is an amazing story and it may bring tears to my eyes, but I told my husband that. My husband went into his office and pulled his boss aside and told him the opportunity that I could have and asked, what are the chances of us going down to Florida for a bit? My husband's boss said, you know what? We have never fully given Florida what it needs to be successful. And it's on the docket to talk about in the executive meeting in 4 weeks. Do not say a word, and we will bring it up there. 4 weeks goes by. They're in that office, in that session, in that meeting. Florida comes up, and one of the guys said, we need to give Florida a chance, but we need to take our culture down to them. The best way to do that is to transplant somebody. And we really believe that that person needs to be Craig, which is my
Yeah.
husband. My husband looked at the boss looked at Craig. They were both like, I never said a word. And so they got it all set up, approved everything. I called down to the clinic And I didn't talk to Robert himself. I talked to someone else. And she said, we just hired somebody. We don't have any place for you. I was like, huh, well, I thought that was going to work out.
I guess it's not meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I told my husband, I said, first of all, it's already lined up for you. I can do anything for a year. Let's just go down to Florida and have an experience and an adventure anyway.
Yeah.
So in August, we came down, looked for a place to live. I said, let's just swing by the office and say hi to everybody.
What year is this?
Came,
What year is this?
This was in this was in 2012. This was
Okay.
August 2012. Okay. So we came into the office, and I wasn't in that office for more than probably 5 minutes. Robert walked through the door. He looked at me. He said, are you moving down here? I said, I'm going to be here in November. He looked at the other lady and he said, get her in here. She called me 2 weeks later. She said, how soon can you get here? I said, November. Done deal. We moved down here. About 5 days after I started work, Robert pulled me aside and he goes, what's this I hear about a year? And I said, well, I thought this was just for a year. And he goes, no, I need a longer commitment from you than that. And I was like, give me Christmas to go home and talk with my kids. And so I went home. I talked with the family. My kids were like, Mom, this has been your passion. This has been your dream for years. You need to do it. So my husband told his boss, I don't think I'm coming back. I think I'm staying at the office down here. That was almost 6 years ago.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. It was meant to be then.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, how big was the clinic then when you got down there? How many people were there?
At that time, I think there was 19 people.
Oh, wow.
19, 20 people. Yeah. It's grown to, we're in the 30s now. I don't know, like low 30s. I don't know how many, but.
Oh, wow. I know that he's mentioned before in videos about he's interested in creating like a wellness center where students can actually come in and get more hands-on practical use with working with clients. Is that still something that, did he want to do it out of country or something? Or yeah.
What was that last question?
Did he mention doing it out of country or something? I'm not sure, but.
He probably did. Robert's not one for travel, and he knows that I am. So I would love that aspect. There is no doubt that we need a retreat center.
Right. Yeah.
We have people all over the world that either don't have support systems, people that don't surround them with the belief and always create doubt, and they need to get away from, a negative environment. They need the spiritual, they need the emotional support, they need the physical support. That's my goal. My husband and I have talked about that for years. I've talked with Robert about that. We've talked about a naturopathic school. Right now, I think there's really only 4 schools that are not purchased by the AMA and are owned, naturopathic schools owned by allopathic medicine.
Oh, really?
Excuse me. Even the schooling that I took, while I absolutely loved it, I didn't go and get my naturopathic portion of my education because of what they could teach me. Although I did learn a lot, but I also came up against a lot that I don't agree with. I didn't get it for the license on the wall. I got it for the people and the doctors. My husband works a lot in the allopathic community with what he does with HIPAA compliance and all of that. And I knew I was going to be meeting with a lot of nurses and a lot of doctors. And I wanted them to at least, even though naturopathic isn't something that they lean against, at least that gave them the understanding that I know a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to merge those two worlds together. Yeah.
Absolutely.
With the emergency medicine like you were talking about, but then more of the natural approach to healing itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also
I ended up throwing myself into a healing crisis at Christmas time. I love to play with herbs. I normally mark the bottles.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I ingested about three dropperfuls, probably more than that, but 3 dropperfuls of, it was tea tree oil and something else. And I didn't realize it until I'd swallowed it. That night, I feel a pop in my chest. The very next breath, I started gurgling. I mean, lungs filling up with fluid. By the time my husband got home from being out of town, he woke me, he got home, and in the middle of the night, he woke me up and he said, I need to take you to the emergency room. You sound like you're dying.
No, no.
And so he ended up taking me because I literally felt like I was drowning. Before I left the emergency room, I had been diagnosed with stage 2 kidney failure, hyperthyroid, pulmonary edema, lymphedema, congestive heart failure.
Oh, wow.
They wanted to do a nuclear radiation test, or nuclear radiation on my thyroid. They wanted to go up through the groin and look at my heart, which their look usually translates into stents. And I said no. All my doctors looked at me and they were like, why would you say no to this?
Right.
And I said, they're all way too invasive. And they're like, no, invasive is this, this, and this. We don't consider this invasive. And I said, I know you don't. I said, but this is what I do for a living. And I could just see their eyes glazing over and crossing as I explained what I do.
Yeah.
But I laid out a picture for them of what I wanted to do for the next 6 months. This is what I do. This is what I do.
Yeah.
It was, to me, I looked at this as an amazing opportunity. How many get diagnosed with this many things that they can start reversing, that they can start seeing what's going on? And I remember the one doctor, he goes, it's not that I don't believe you. It's just I've never seen someone do this.
Right.
I said, that's okay. All I'm asking for is 6 months, and then you and I will talk again. My other doctor, when I laid out the plans, especially the herbal ones, he just looked at me and he goes, you realize, don't you, that most of our medicine is based out of herbs? We just perfected it. And I went, au contraire, you can't perfect on God. I said, that's why you have side effects and I do not.
Right.
So I remember the one doctor, the very first, for the pulmonary edema, I went in and I got my lungs rechecked. And he come back and he goes, wow. He said, not only do your lungs look better, they look perfect. And I was like, one down.
Yeah.
And every month that's went by, I have gotten more confirmation that that is taken care of.
Yeah. And what was it you took again? What was it?
Oh goodness. I did our herbs, but I specifically did hawthorn, motherwort, lungwort, mullein. I did all the things to support kidneys, lungs, heart, and circulation. Plus, obviously, cleaning out, getting the fluid off the body. I talked with Robert and we both agreed, because I had so much fluid. They had found 7 inches of fluid on my left lung and 6.5 inches of fluid on my right. So I did Lasix for a little bit, but that was the only allopathic medication that I allowed them to give me or that I agreed to take. And shortly after that, I just started titrating off of it and started using our stuff, and it worked.
Oh, wow. I guess you got to be careful, huh? Wow. You got to label those bottles, Marcie.
But let me tell you this, because I believe God is in everything. The day that I returned from that major healing crisis, I took 2 weeks off of work. The day that I returned, 3 women called in with some of the exact same symptoms. And look at the experience I had learned and was seeing myself pull myself out of it and knew what to do and how to handle that even better than what I had before.
Wow.
All things happen for a reason. Was it a fun experience for me? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But if I had to go through it so that I could help those 3 ladies figure out how to get through it,
Right.
so be it.
Wow. That's a trip to think about. Yeah. I don't know how we're doing on time here. We've got to start wrapping this up here pretty quick. But I can't let you get out of here without asking you some Dr. Morse questions.
Yes.
What is it like working with Dr. Morse? Is he always so animated like in his videos, or is he pretty quiet off camera? What's it like working with that guy?
He never stops.
That's what I figured.
He gives. His mind is always going. He is constantly watching shows that teach more about the body so that he can understand it more. He's just absolutely, he's Robert on screen and off screen. I mean, he is, I think, a year or so younger than my dad. They both have that white hair. He's just been such a father figure and such a mentor for me. I truly praise the Lord for the opportunity to know him on such a personal level. It has been amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. Because I know he's kind of like, because when I talk to him, he's all, yeah, I'm a homebody. I just sit at home. I watch my documentaries or TV shows, whatever. He doesn't do a lot. So
When he says sits and watches his documentaries, that comes once the sun goes down. If that sun's up, he's out in his yard. He's planting fruit trees. He's moving this fruit tree to this place.
yeah.
He's constantly making these gorgeous, beautiful paths and all that stuff. He never slows down, ever. His mind's always going.
Yeah. When I talked to him, he was a pretty spiritual guy. I mean, everything came back to spirituality and just how you perceive the world and your place in it. And sometimes it's kind of hard to comprehend or keep up with him because he's so high level. But yeah, it was amazing to talk to him when I had the opportunity.
Yeah. We've had some pretty interesting spiritual conversations. I'll say that.
And you know what was funny? After I talked to him, I think it was the next night he showed up in my dream. I don't remember what we talked about, but I remember he showed up and he'd never done that before. I'm like, that was weird. I know you mentioned that before, like, you know, I forget what he calls them, but people will show up and have conversations with you. I'm like, because he does like the astral traveling and all that stuff. I don't know, but yeah.
So he's definitely a very, very unique individual. I love him like crazy.
Now, because I was saying before, I think I said this yesterday, I kind of consider you Dr. Morse's right hand. I think you've been in more videos than anybody else. And so would you consider yourself his protege? Do you think you'll take over the teachings at the courses, the level ones, when he decides he's not going to do it anymore? Or would that be too big of a...
Robert's got a lot, he's got a big footprint to fill.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself his right-hand person. I just know that I hope we have him for a lot longer because there's still so much I would love to learn from him. And this thought process, this way of looking at health needs to consume the world. It's not just a little fad. People need to know about this. And Robert will be the first to say, one man cannot do it all. That's why we do the videos we do. That's why we do the teaching we do, so that people will take this and they will start working on themselves, and through that learn and experience and be able to share with others what they need to do and the power that they have to be able to do this. To sit here and say, I'm going to fill his shoes or anything like that, just the arrogance of thinking that.
Right.
I don't even want to go there. God's gonna deal with me, and he is going to place me where he wants me, and where that is and where that leads, I'm ready for the adventure. Who knows where that goes.
Right. One last question and I'll let you get out of here. What can someone...
And I will say this, Robert handpicks each one of his counselors, and we work with him and we train with him, and we are constantly discussing cases and things in amongst the counselors themselves and in amongst, because the more eyes you have, it doesn't always happen that way, but the tough cases we do, because the more eyes that you have on that case, the more opinions you have on that case, the more chance that it's like, I forgot that. Thank you. I'll use that as well. I'm going to add that to their arsenal. I'm going to remind them of that. I'm going to share that with them and things like that. People call in, it's about experience. We've got some amazing counselors. As you go, it's like I said, that experience I had at Christmas time, that kind of taught me some things that I needed to know for the cases that were coming. And it's about experience. And the more experience that you get with your clients, the more wisdom you're going to have, the more insight you're going to have, the better you are to be able to help that person.
Yeah. I think we're all learning, we're all evolving. If somebody comes out and says they know it all, they're lying. They don't.
Absolutely.
We're all figuring it out. So I think Hildy was the one that kind of brought dry fasting to the forefront for our community. And so that opened the floodgates for a whole new level of healing and stuff. So yeah. We're all sharing. And,
I've actually been working with dry fasting quite a while myself personally, and started doing that with some of my tougher cases. We call him, they're one of my clients. Robert spoke about him before on video, so it probably wouldn't hurt to say who it is. But anyway, he's been working at dry fasting and 9 and 10 and 11 days of dry fasting, but he's also gotten out of a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You know, dry fasting is absolutely amazing. And the science behind that has been there for a long time.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's just so many people more and more are starting to understand the benefits of fasting. And you look at it this way, our office is not set up to follow somebody on a long dry fast, like 7, 10, 12 days, whatever. I very consistently have clients on a dry fast, 24 hours, 1 day a week, until they can handle that. And then if we move into deeper areas, great. But think about it this way. Even God took a day off and rested on the 7th day.
Right.
And so look at our land and how we have depleted the nutrients because we have not observed the law of allowing them to rest.
Yeah.
It's the same with our bodies. Giving your body a 1 day rest where you don't eat or drink anything, first of all, you're not going to harm the body. Granted, if you've got somebody that is completely bedridden and they are so weak that they can't handle it, doing a 24-hour dry fast is not where you jump in.
Yeah.
But getting them to the point that they can do the dry fasting and do it 1 day a week, and then they start seeing the benefits of that, and they start seeing their kidneys filter better, and I've got people that have been fasting and doing fruits for a year, and they're like, I'm still not filtering. I was that way. It took me 9 months to see any sediment at all, and it took me 14 before I saw it on a consistent basis. How do you speed that up? Because if you're not filtering, you're just moving stuff around.
Right.
So getting that out and understanding the dry fast is amazing.
Yeah. That was awesome. Thank you. So one last question, I'll let you get out of here. If someone wants to start a detoxification process, but they don't want to flip their life upside down and go completely extreme, what steps can they do today to start cleaning out the body, getting healthier? What would your advice be?
If you're talking about somebody who's serious about it, really wants to do it, but isn't sure about things, I would start out by just adding a lot more fruit to your diet. That in and of itself is going to start changing your consciousness. That's going to start getting you to feeling healthier and getting you to the point that you could even imagine, what would it be like if I did this program for a while? What would I feel like? I feel this difference. How would I feel if I committed to the whole thing? Just adding those fruits can change that awareness because you do start cleaning. Astringents in the fruit and stuff really get things moving.
Yeah.
At that point, start eliminating one thing at a time until your body's used to that and until you see the benefit in that. Then move to the next.
Yeah.
Slowly. You said you just watched the video on Ian and I. At the very beginning of his journey, he didn't even cut out anything. He just added in, I forget how many smoothies he added in, juices. He started juicing and doing greens and doing fruits and started seeing such a difference in his numbers and in how he felt that he's like, I'm going to do this. At the end of a year, he couldn't believe the differences. Yeah, I think he's almost all raw. I'm pretty sure he's close to being all raw.
Yeah.
But he still does greens. He still does juices. He's working on doing some building things right now. He looks phenomenal. Looks great.
He needs to work out a little bit more, I think. His muscles are a little puny.
His arms aren't big enough.
Hit the gym, Ian, would you? Yeah.
So amazing guy. If you ever get a chance to meet him or work with him, he's amazing.
Yeah. Also, I would add to that too, get outside in nature more, put down the phone, get away from the EMFs, open some windows in the house, let the house breathe. Just try and get more back into nature. We're so far removed from what's natural for us. So I just say that too.
Absolutely. Just walking through the grass or walking on the beach, what it does to the mind. This is the thing. Just a simple frown creates the brain or causes the brain to release cortisol, which we know what cortisol does in conjunction with the adrenals, causing issues and inflammation and all that stuff. Just a frown. Imagine what being on the phone all day, sitting in front of your computer, being around all these EM fields and all this electrical stuff and not enjoying the full spectrum sun and walking through grass or on the beach or things like this and embracing nature. Everything in nature everything has a frequency. But when you walk through nature, the frequency of the trees, the frequency of the plants, the frequency of the rocks, the frequency of the animals themselves, the leaves, these things are all harmonious. It is a vibrant symphony, and that has an impact on our body.
Right.
A very positive one.
Yeah. I love it. Sounds good. Good advice. If people want to connect with you, Marcie, maybe want to work with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way to do that is through my assistant, Julia. It's Julia at dmhhc.com. Stands for Dr. Morse's Herbal Health Club. So dmhhc.com. Just get in touch with her. Let her know what you're interested in, what you want to do, how you want to work with me, that kind of thing. And we'll do our best to accommodate.
And so what do you do? Consults online through Skype or something? Do you do?
We do Skype, we do phone, we do in person.
Awesome. Cool.
Oh.
Well, I think you did amazing for your first podcast interview. You did great.
It has been such a pleasure. I have absolutely loved this. I could talk for a while yet, but my husband has sadly been neglected this evening.
He's all checking his watch.
Yeah. So awesome. He's my biggest supporter. He just is.
Awesome. Yeah. It's important to have that support. It's important.
Yeah. And I still remember just one story. When I first learned about this, I told my husband about it. I told my kids about it. And I remember their first reaction. You do not touch the meat and you do not touch the dairy. You do what you want to do, but you leave us alone.
Yeah. You're on your own journey, now, Mom. Yeah.
I will say, when we moved down here, he's not doing this completely, but he has lost 90 pounds.
Wow.
His diet looks totally different than what it looked like in Indiana.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
So I'm excited for that. Yeah. And my kids are finally calling me and saying, well, what do I do about this? And what do I do about that? Because when I first started doing this as a mother, I was like, oh, you need to change this and this and this and this and this. And they're like, who are you?
Right, yeah.
So, but the fact that they're starting to ask and the fact that they're starting to ask for my grandkids and see the benefit, even if they can't fathom that thought process yet, it's pretty, I love it for other people, but when your own kids are are doing some damage to themselves, or the grandkids aren't eating as healthy as what you would like, and you see that, it just rips at you. It
Oh
does.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That stuff for me is the
So,
kid thing. Yeah. But kids have a good bullshit detector. They can see the truth. They see it when they know it. Yeah.
absolutely. I remember at Christmas when all this happened, and I was too weak to go up and down the steps. My kids come to me and they were like, "All right, we know what you said you're going to do. Now we're going to watch to make sure you do it." Even though they don't do it, they were going to make sure I did it.
Hold you accountable. Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
That's great.
Hey, accountability is it.
Yeah, that's everything. Yep. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Cool. All
It
right.
was so nice talking with you, Chris. Thank you so
Yeah.
much
Thank you.
for this privilege and this honor. And I had fun.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, it was fun connecting. We should have done this a long time ago, but oh well.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thank you so much, and I'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.